Hello, everybody. I am your instructor for this semester in raster imaging. My name is Jason Parker. I've corresponded with some of you all over Blackboard, and I enjoy your introductory messages. We have an exciting group and pretty large. I think there were 30 of you in this class. Um, so that'll be exciting for our critiques and the kind of work that we'll see together. Right now, I wanted to introduce myself and let you get a look at me, and I'm going to talk us through some of the overview document that I loaded up in the week 2 folder under lessons and assignments in Blackboard. As you can probably tell, I'm used to actually being on the other side of the camera, so please bear with me as I narrate us through our presentation here. So first, I'll just go ahead and show us this document. This is a document that is available in Blackboard under Lessons and Assignments, Week 2. It's an overview of Raster Graphics and Adobe Photoshop. Kind of the first thing that we want to know about Raster Graphics is that Raster Graphics are also known as bitmap images, which we don't say a lot anymore, but what they are pixels. They're little squares, and those squares are then arranged in a grid that forms an image. Think of the dots on a television or on your display screen, and then each one of those pixels has color information, which allows raster graphics to be better at displaying complex colors and gradients over like a vector program, which is mathematically based and doesn't do kind of like gradient colors as well. So here we have this kind of picture of Steve Jobs to give us an idea, right? Raster graphics typically are better with pictures, photography, photographs, because of that ability to display complex colors. Vector graphics are really great when you want to use multiple sizes of something. It's mathematically based, so there are no pixels in a vector image at all. And the two sort of biggest applications that people use for raster graphics and vector graphics are Photoshop is a raster graphic application, and Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphic program. So what I'm going to do is come over here to this screen and open Photoshop, and I'm going to go into my applications folder here and find Photoshop. And Adobe Photoshop 2024 is the version that you will get through Adobe. That's one of the great things about the subscription program, is that you always have the most current version. This version came out, I think, in about November, or that's when they made like the last major changes to it. And so I've opened Photoshop. Here we go. I'll just make this full screen so we can have a look at it. So Photoshop does kind of everything. You can do text, obviously editing and retouching photography, all kinds of sort of universal comprehensive tool, right? And this interface is really great. It can be used by sort of amateurs getting, introduced basic edits, crop, resize, print, things like that, and then super, advanced, multi-layer, moving parts, vector graphics, all of this kind of stuff. So it's a really great tool because it kind of spans the gamut of skill areas that people might have or needs that they might have related to making pictures. So let's make a new file. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click New File. I have a bunch of custom sizes in here. What we will start with in Photoshop, let's click on the photo template up here, right there. And we'll just start with the default Photoshop size, which is 5 by 7 inches at 300 ppi or pixels per inch, which I'll explain a little later. There are templates too, but let's go with this default document. You can see over here too in this properties panel, it's untitled. I'm going to call this overview image. I strongly suggest that you name all of your files something other than untitled, because eventually you'll end up with a whole bunch of files named untitled 1, 2, 3, 4, and you won't know what any of them are. So name it something. Width and height 5 by 7. Orientation is landscape at 300 pixels per inch. All of this stuff here is fine. And we'll go create. Voila. So here we have the initial view of a new 5 by 7 document in Photoshop. Let me find my cursor here. You may not actually have your guides or grid turned on. I like to use what's called a rule of thirds grid when I'm mapping things out. It's the same thing that I keep actually in my camera viewfinder. It helps me to compose. We'll get to that a little later on, but I'm just going to turn that off for now. It helps me when I'm plotting things out in the grid of pixels that make up a raster image. So here we are. So we looked at file open. This is the right here. This is the menu bar where you choose, file open, close, and do most of the options that we have in the program, in addition to being accessible through the left side or right side, keyboard commands are also available up here in this menu. And then we have the tools menu. These will apply, this kind of second layer here will apply to the specific tool that you are using now. So for example, at this point, I have the marquee tool selected, and I see some options that specifically relate to the marquee tool. Actually, I guess I left out the title bar. Adobe Photoshop 2024 will tell you what version you're using, and you have some kind of Photoshop specific and mostly useful, the sharing function. We'll get to that. Then over here on the left-hand side, we have our toolbar, which gives us all of our options to manipulate these documents, to put new things in and change and heal and move things around. This is our move tool, rectangular marquee, and a variety of selection tools here at the top are the marquee and the lasso. This object selection tool is amazing. It's pretty new. Photoshop is really smart now and can pick out the subject and the background in a lot of images. Amazing. Underneath any of these tools that have an arrow next to them, if you click and hold that arrow down, you'll get the other tools that are beneath it. Magic wand tool is very useful. Quick selection, very useful. As you can see, the tools are kind of grouped here, right? There's the move tool, a variety of selection tools, cropping, eyedropper, a variety of these healing tools, healing brush, remove tool. You could actually take things out of your images really easily now. Patch does some retouching, healing images, large areas. Content aware moving, so you could take something that's in one part of a picture and move it to another part. Pencil, clone stamp, history brush, etc., etc. We'll go through most of these tools over the course of the term. This is your dodge and burn tool, which will make an image lighter or darker. This is useful particularly in portrait retouching, which we'll get into. Text. These pen tools are where you can create vector elements in this raster program. When it's printed out or saved, it will actually be rasterized, but you can create vectors with the pen tool. The hand tool is the moving tool. You can move your image around as you zoom in, which you will zoom in a lot. The zoom tool, which lets you zoom in and out. These are the default colors. They're black and white. You can hit the X key to flip those. The one on top is the foreground. The one on bottom is the background color. And then we have some masking items here. On the right side of an image are your panels. And what these do, these show your layers, which are especially useful. It's kind of the best thing about Photoshop is its incorporation of layers and the ability to do non-destructive editing, meaning when you erase something, maybe you've only got it on one layer, and so you're not actually destroying pixels within your image. Here are adjustment layers. You would use these to make changes to your image. You change the color, the saturation. These are kinds of your basic color adjustment layers and filters and things that you can use in here. Channels and paths are some things we'll get that are a little more advanced. And then we have our document image or window, right? The thing we're working on. I'm going to open a portrait file that I've worked on in the past to kind of take a look at some of these concepts of layers, retouching, etc. It's a pretty big file. There's lots of layers. There we go. All right. So what you're looking at here is the after view. So this is what we started with, right? And this incorporates all of these tools that we have in Photoshop. For example, you know, lots of layers, as you can see over here, all of which I've tried to name so that I know which layer I'm working with. There are a lot of them, a lot of things happening in this image. This reflects about two hours of work to get it to this point where we see in the after image. So Photoshop. First, I used all of these tools in a variety of ways to make this finished image happen. As you can see, I made adjustments on different layers. I grouped layers together, color, eyes, etc. I used what are called masks. That is another kind of level of non-destructive editing. Filters and effects. You could obviously tell she's heavily filtered. These selection tools that we talked about helped me to select her hair, right? Hair is difficult to select, but Photoshop has powerful selection tools and techniques that help you to kind of retouch hair and make a nice, neat selection around hair to get rid of strays and things like that. We've used various types of healing brushes and color adjustments to get the color to change. It has this kind of color cast over it, and you can see how I've changed that. Blemishes on her skin, kind of made her eyes pop made her eyes pop, right? It looks cool. And then we used some what are called neural filters and effects, which are a new AI element of Photoshop that allows you to kind of change things about faces. Really cool. So I have another picture here that I'll show you the neural filters that Photoshop, one of the cool things that it does now, I'll roll here to neural filters. And this is another AI element that allows you to do various, artificial intelligence things to your pictures. Skin smoothing. Here's an easy one, colorize. You could take these old images and apply color to them, just like that. Click, done, amazing. And quickly, one last thing. I'm going to open a new window. I just hit Command N on my keyboard to make that happen. Choose this default Photoshop size and quickly mention Generative Fill, which is here in what's called the contextual menu bar. So Generative Fill is an AI, artificial intelligence way that Photoshop now has to create images from text prompts. So I've opened this new image, 5x7" default from Photoshop. I've selected the entire image. I've selected all. You can choose select all. I'd actually hit Command A to make that happen, which you then see these marching ants around the edge. And I'm going to come down here to my contextual menu. I'm going to click on Generative Fill. Well, walk back down there. And I'm going to type, I don't know, what do we think of? Robot riding a tiger that is also a spaceship. And see what the robots can come up with. You'll have to agree to a Adobe user agreement when you first open up your Generative Fill in Photoshop. So this is what it came up with. Again, I typed in the words robot riding a tiger that is also a spaceship. And the artificial intelligence came up with 3 different options for me. 1, 2, 3. It's pretty rad, right? So this is one of the extremely powerful new tools been incorporated into Photoshop, which is sort of the flagship comprehensive raster imaging application that we're going to talk about this term. Yeah, so that's just I've just talked you through the first overview of Photoshop 2024, and I look forward to corresponding with you all some more in our class. We'll start having assignments and quizzes and things like that soon, just as soon as you all get your Adobe accounts, student accounts. If you have Photoshop now, feel free to play around and explore, do some of those tutorials we talked about on Blackboard. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm Jason Parker, J.A. Parker at atlantatech.edu. Yeah, thanks for listening. I look forward to working with you all this term and making some cool Photoshop raster images.